The rain hadn't stopped for 6 days on the planet Varela 9. Lieutenant Darren Cole, a surveyor for the Interstellar Expansion Corps, sat inside his cracked survey pod, listening to the relentless hiss of alien rain battering the hull. His mission was supposed to be simple: chart the mineral-rich canyon systems, send the data back to command, and move on. But something was wrong with his equipment. His pod sensors kept glitching out whenever they scanned the northern quadrant of the canyon. The readings were impossible. Massive moving shapes, kilometers tall, with heat signatures unlike anything human instruments had ever recorded. At first, Darren thought it was an error caused by the thick electromagnetic storms in the upper atmosphere. But then the tremors started. Each night, long after the rain quieted, the ground would pulse, slow, rhythmic, and alive. He told himself it was tectonic activity. But when he stepped outside on the 7th day and saw the footprint in the red clay, a depression nearly 20 meters long, he knew better. Something enormous was out there. The footsteps in the mist. He followed the prints, each step crunching in the mud, the canyon fog curling around him like smoke. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and something sweet, like crushed flowers. Darren's visor flickered as his environment suit compensated for the temperature fluctuations. He climbed a ridge, his boots sinking in the wet soil, and peered down into a valley where steam rose from hot springs that glowed blue under the clouds. And there, moving between the pools, was a shape. At first, it was just a silhouette, a tower of pale light and movement like a mirage in motion. Then, as the mist parted, Darren's mind failed to make sense of the scale. She was easily 50 meters tall. Humanoid but not human. Her skin shimmered like silver beneath the fog, patterns rippling across it like bioluminescent waves. Her hair, if it could be called that, moved as though underwater, threads of light cascading down her shoulders. She was walking through the steam, utterly unaware of him, or maybe indifferent. And she was completely naked. Darren froze. His instincts screamed at him to retreat, but he couldn't. It wasn't just shock or fascination. It was the sheer awe of seeing something so vast, so otherworldly, and yet so graceful it made his pulse stutter. He crouched behind a rock ledge, trying not to breathe too loudly, his visor recording everything. The alien giantess stepped into one of the glowing pools, the water swirling around her thighs. She closed her eyes and tilted her head back, emitting a soft hum that made the air vibrate. The sound wasn't just noise, it was language. A resonance that seemed to echo directly into his bones. Darren realized dimly that he was witnessing something sacred, some kind of ritual or rest or song. He didn't mean to intrude. He just couldn't look away. Then she turned around, breathed a smile. Her gaze met his instantly. For a second the world froze. Darren's entire body went rigid. He could see his own reflection in her pupils, tiny, fragile, caught in the glare of an intelligence that spanned centuries. He expected anger, flash of light. Instead she smiled. It was slow, deliberate, and disarmingly human. Her lips curved just slightly, and her eyes, pale as the twin moons above, softened with something like amusement. Then she spoke. The sound didn't come as words. It was a vibration, a pulse of tone that his translator implant struggled to decode. The message that finally filtered through into English nearly made him drop to his knees. You are small, but you are not unwelcome. Darren's breath caught. His training failed him entirely. What are you? He stammered, his voice trembling through the calm mic. The alien tilted her head. I am Virelin. This world is my cradle. And you, little wanderer, have stepped into my dream. The rain intensified again, hissing against the hot water. Darren's visor fogged at the edges. He took a hesitant step forward, compelled more by curiosity than courage. "I didn't mean to intrude," he said. "I was, scouting. I didn't know anyone lived here." Varellin laughed softly. It wasn't cruel. Sounded like the wind across glass. "Few would call what I am living anymore the memory of giants." Over the next few hours, Darren stayed with her. He couldn't leave, even though part of him screamed that this was a first contact event beyond anything the Corps had prepared him for. Varellin told him, or rather projected into his mind, the story of her kind. Once, eons ago, the Valen, her people, had ruled a web of star systems. They were architects of gravity, sculptors of light, beings who could bend matter as easily as thought. But their civilization had been undone not by war, but by silence. Their minds had grown too vast, too interconnected, until they merged into one consciousness that could no longer sustain individuality. The collective collapsed, leaving only echoes. Varellin was one of the last. Not truly alive, but not gone either. A sentient echo wandering the remains of her homeworld. Darren listened, spellbound. He asked, "Why are you still here?" Her gaze softened again. "Because memory clings, little one. Even to ghosts." 5. The Human and the Titan. Days passed. Darren repaired his camp near the canyon, but he found himself returning to the hot springs every evening. Varellin would appear through the mist, radiant and silent until she saw him. Their conversations became easier. He began to understand fragments of her telepathic language, the way she conveyed emotion through harmonics rather than words. Sometimes she would shrink herself, a dazzling display of matter compression, to a height of just a few meters so she could walk beside him. Other times, she remained towering, gazing down at him like a mountain that had decided to care. Darren told her about humanity, about Earth's crowded cities, the oceans choked with satellites, the desperate search for new homes among the stars. She listened, fascinated. "You scatter yourselves like seeds," she said once. "Always reaching for more." He smiled. "That's kind of our thing." But beneath his fascination, something deeper began to grow. It wasn't romance in the human sense. It was something gentler and stranger. A connection between two species that shouldn't have had anything in common. He realized one evening, watching her face reflected in the blue pools, that he didn't feel afraid anymore. 6. The Ruins of the Sky. Varellin wanted to show him something. She led him, carefully, ensuring her massive strides didn't shake him off his feet, to a place beyond the canyon, where the clouds parted to reveal colossal towers rising from the desert. They weren't made of stone or metal, but of solidified light, structures that pulsed faintly with energy, even after millennia. This was the Sky Archive, she said. It held every thought the Valen ever had, every song, every dream, every sorrow. When the silence came, it sealed itself. Darren approached one of the towers, his gloved hand brushing its surface. The material felt alive, humming faintly. His suit's sensors detected an impossible density of information. He looked up at her. "Can it be reopened?" Her expression was unreadable. "Only by one who remembers the right melody. And I have forgotten." That night, under the twin moons, Darren replayed recordings of her songs, those hums and tones she emitted unconsciously. Using his translation software, he began to reconstruct patterns, harmonics that might align with the archive's frequency. It took days of sleepless work and more than a few near disasters with his power core, but eventually, he found it. Resonance key. When he played it through the canyon, the towers awoke. Light cascaded down their sides. The ground trembled. For a moment, Darren thought he had doomed them all, but then he saw Varellin kneel, her enormous form trembling with emotion. "You've done what I could not," she whispered. "You gave me back the voices of my kind." 7. The choice. For weeks afterward, the canyon glowed with life. Varellin absorbed the songs of her ancestors, growing brighter and more defined. But Darren knew what that meant. Her energy signature was rising. His instruments detected quantum instability. She wasn't just remembering. She was reassembling the collective consciousness of the Valen. If it completed, she would no longer exist as an individual. She'd merge into the long silent hive of her people. He tried to warn her. "You'll disappear," he said one night. "You'll stop being you." Varellin smiled sadly. "I was never meant to be one alone. But I thank you, little wanderer, for reminding me what it meant to feel." The next dawn, the light from the towers reached the sky. Varellin's body began to dissolve into particles of silver and blue, swirling upward in a majestic spiral. Darren ran forward, shouting her name, though the sound was drowned by the song of a billion voices awakening. Before she vanished completely, she turned toward him one last time, just as she had that first day, and smiled. "You are small," her voice echoed inside his mind, "but your heart is vast." Then she was gone. The last transmission. Months later, the interstellar core received a single, encrypted transmission from Varela 9. It contained a brief log entry, voice distorted by static. Lieutenant Darren Cole, Survey Mission 77A. Contact made with non-human intelligence. Planet now exhibiting massive photonic activity consistent with quantum resurrection phenomena. Subject Varellin, believed ascended. Personal note, she smiled at the end. "And I think she forgave us, before we even knew what we'd done." After that, the planet was sealed by command order. No further expeditions were allowed. But sometimes, passing ships reported strange lights over Varela 9, vast, glowing silhouettes moving through the clouds, singing songs that could be felt in the bones. And among them one voice, soft, familiar, always seemed to linger, whispering through the static. "Little wanderer, I remember."